Tell me, how's your week been? Has it been good or bad? What is it that you have filled your time with? What have you filled your body with? And what is it that you have filled your soul with? It is so natural to want to fill our lives up. We don't want to be bored. We want to have something to show for our time. And we also have basic needs. So we need to get the washing done, or make the dinner, have a shower. But are we filling ourselves with the right things? If you're hungry, you could eat 15 Mars bars. It will satisfy the hunger, but it's not necessarily the best thing for your body. Now we know that to have a healthy body, we need to have a balanced diet. We need to have protein, carbohydrate, fibre, vitamins, minerals, all in appropriate proportions for our body to function properly. But we also want to enjoy our food, thinking about it, preparing it and consuming it, and hopefully enjoying the company as we eat it. So our hunger, it's not just for the right balance of nutrients, but for the pleasure that comes from the whole experience. We want to feel good, and sometimes we want to give ourselves a wee boost. So we remember that eating a fudge donut was a really good experience. It felt good. So we have a bad day and we decide that we need something to cheer us up. We go out and we buy a fudge donut. And that seems to work. We feel a wee bit better. We go back and do the same thing a week later, and then a couple of days after that. Then we get some good news and we want to celebrate. So we buy 2 fudge donuts. The fudge donut has become a habit that doesn't really feed any part of us properly. It's not filling us up. We might feel a wee bit sick after eating it, especially if we've had 2, because it is a bit sickly. And it's no longer about making us happy. It's no longer special. But we do keep trying to fill ourselves with fudge donuts. Now, I don't think that Solomon had fudge donuts in the ancient Near East when he was writing Ecclesiastes, but I'm sure that if he had, he would have declared them as meaningless as well, a chasing after the wind. We are born to crave. We're born to seek and to search and to adventure. Without this need inside of us, we wouldn't have moved beyond the hunter-gatherer stage of evolution. To crave and to seek is part of what makes us human. And there's nothing wrong with striving for more in any part of our lives. The problem occurs when that craving becomes all that we seek. Then it stops being beneficial and becomes an addiction. Addiction, as we know, can take many forms. We often think drug or alcohol addiction because of the obvious detrimental effects they have on the body and the mind. But addiction might be exercise or food, collecting things, playing computer games, gambling, power, money. Anything that has the ability to give you that feel-good feeling in the short term can become addictive, that boost of dopamine. But as any heroin addict will tell you, you can never again achieve the perfection of the first time that you try something. Every successive time is merely a shadow of that glorious first sensation, an embracing of folly. Hungering and thirsting on their own are not enough, because we have to be craving the right things. We have to be craving righteousness. Righteousness is one of those things which I've never been convinced is a good thing. is always too closely associated with self-righteousness. Do you remember that story of the rich young man who approached Jesus and asked how he could enter the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus kept pushing back. "Keep the commandments," he says. "I have," replied the young man. "Then give your possessions to the poor," says Jesus. And the man goes away sad. But imagine what would have happened if he'd gone back to Jesus and said, "Done it. I've given away all my possessions." Would Jesus have said, "Well done, here's your one-way ticket to heaven"? No, he would have given him something else and something else until the man was forced to turn and say, I can't do this on my own." And Jesus would have said, at last you have seen that you cannot just buy your way into heaven. It isn't about what you have or what you can do. It's about what you can't do and about what you don't have. Obeying the 10 Commandments as they are written on paper is possible. There are only 10 of them after all. Have you ever murdered anyone? Have you ever stolen? Have you committed adultery or lied? Quite possibly not. But have you always put God first in your life? Have you never craved a car or a job that someone else has? Have you never been overwhelmed with anger? The Pharisees turned the keeping of the law into an addiction in itself. They were obsessive about every little minute detail that could possibly be deemed as an infraction. But not only for them, but for everybody else as well. And then they added some other rules, just to make sure that they didn't slip up. And in doing so, in trying to please God, they broke the first commandment. Have no other gods before me. They craved religiosity and idolized knowledge about God and the rules of God over worshipping God himself. Talk about missing the point. None of us would do that, would we? We all know of people who can quote the Bible in chapter and verse and will pepper their conversation with relevant or irrelevant phrases. We've probably been aware of those who like to look particularly devout as they pray or sing, and we'll have seen some films of televangelists who wield the Bible like a weapon, both literally and figuratively. Being religious can be quite a self-righteous pastime. Being filled with the righteousness of Christ, that's something quite different. We were given the law that we might become aware of our need for God. The law was meant to make us hunger and thirst for God, to make us aware that we could not go it alone, that we might seek his righteousness to fill us, because we lack the ability to be truly righteous by ourselves. Romans 3:20 puts it succinctly. Therefore no one will be declared righteous by the works of the law. Rather, through the law, we become conscious of our sin. And once we have become conscious of our sin, of our need for help, of our inability to do things on our own, it is then that our natural cravings are given direction. They are given focus. That focus is, of course, Christ. It was Christ who broke the power of sin and of death. It is through Christ that we find help. Throughout the Gospels, there are so many stories of how Christ meets people at their hungriest and thirstiest. People who have craved the wrong things and come up empty. You will also remember the story of the woman at the well. She was suspicious of Jesus at first, and probably with good cause. She had quite possibly been condemned so many times that she was expecting yet another lecture on where her life was going wrong. But that wasn't what she got. She wasn't berated. She was offered an alternative. Jesus didn't tell her that things were okay, but he did point her in the right direction. It can be so easy to condemn the life choices of others, but maybe we just need to point them in another direction. The woman at the well, she knew she was eating dirt, but she didn't know how to stop. She knew that her thirst was never being quenched. She was desperate for change, but she didn't know where to turn because the religious folks were too busy beating her with the law to actually help her. One of my favourite sayings is that at birth we are dealt a hand of cards. And it's not the hand that we're given, but the way that we play them that makes the difference in our lives. I know I was born into a certain degree of privilege by the standards of the world. I have never wanted for food or clothing or a roof over my head. I was brought up by two parents who loved me, supported me, and helped me to make good choices. And not everyone gets those cards. Their experience can be very different, and they will do anything to escape their circumstances. They live their life the best way they can with what they have. So when folks come into our church, maybe it's to a service, snack and chat, coffee pot, toddlers, or any of the other activities which take place in this building, do we offer them living water? Or are we handing out judgment? If Christ, who knew no sin, did not judge, but offered the water of life to those craving fulfillment, how can we do any different? Amen.